Okay. So for our huddle here today, writing this down on the top of your notepad really, I think will really help here is questions are the answers. Questions are the answers. So questions are the answers. And so I'm going to open this up for some Q&A here. If I open this up and nobody has any questions, we're going to have a problem, people. I'm just letting you know right now. It's going to be an issue. And you're like, oh, I don't have any questions. You should have questions. So it's actually one of the things that concerns me the most whenever I do Q&As is when people just kind of stare blankly at the screen and go, I don't even know. I don't know what to add. I don't have any questions. And here's the reason why is I want to kind of take you back a little bit on my journey is I want you to be so curious that I don't want the curiosity ever to leave you. And what I mean by that is we all know in the network marketing profession, there is a lot of joiners and there's few doers. And then from the doers, there's few people that really become what I would consider leaders, meaning how many people out there that make a little bit? There's a lot of people who make a little bit. And then there's a few people who make a lot. And then there's some that get everything they want out of this profession. And if you've been around long enough and you've been on training, you've been on coaching calls for the amount of people who join versus the amount of people who get the kind of freedom lifestyle that most people are looking for is not a big percentage. So my question is, why? What's the difference? What were the differences between those that created a 6- and 7-figure income and those that didn't? I'm not talking about those that joined who didn't do anything. I'm not talking about that group of people, right? I'm talking about the people that like genuinely wanted to be very successful, genuinely wanted to. They worked pretty hard, and maybe they were inconsistent. But the question is, what were the differences? What were the key things between that? And the reason why is I had a list of questions. So I started studying 6 figures inside of my first company in network marketing, like I would study anything, almost as if I was like dissecting it, right? And what I would do is this, they say, find people who have what you want, do what they do, and you'll have what they have, or become who they've become and you can get where they are. Those type of language, those types of things. So when the questions is, I found that overcoming objections in my business was questions. I found out that closing was asking questions. I found out that when I was looking at creating a relationship with somebody, it was asking questions. It was finding out more about this, but it wasn't just asking questions. It was this curiosity, this level of learning and understanding of going, okay, I'm not just going to show up to a huddle. I'm not going to show up to a presentation. I'm not going to show up to an event because it's what I'm supposed to do. It's part of my checklist. That's part of my to-do list. I'm going to show up because I want to figure this out. Like there's this like, I got to get this thing. I got to get it. I got to figure it out. And what a lot of people do through the process that I've noticed in their learning process is they kind of figure out where it's like, okay, I either get it or I don't. I got it or I don't. I'm good at this or I'm not. And all the skills in our business are learned skills. I can tell you that for sure. Some take longer to learn than others. Some are more challenging to learn than others. But the questions, here's why I want you to kind of take this down is this, is when you have an opportunity to ask questions or meet with people, I was obsessed with this. I would do almost anything. I would drive almost anywhere if I could sit down one-on-one or individually and ask questions to somebody who was earning the type of income that I was looking to generate in my network marketing career. So for me in the very beginning, that was 6 figures. And then after 6 figures, it was someone that was earning 7 figures. Because one of the things is every level is a different devil, as they say. So there's always challenges that you're going to experience through every part of the journey. But I want to take you back to the very beginning because that the first level of success of getting to 6 figures in my first 4 years, after my first year, I really got obsessed with it and the questions. So I'm going to open this up for questions. By the way, this is me stalling for you mentally preparing yourself to ask questions. Because if I open this up and nobody asks any questions, we're going to have problems. I'm telling you right now, people. So I might just call up Ruth and Trish and be like, listen, these guys, we need new ones. No, I'm just kidding. But what I really mean is when I sat down with somebody that was earning 6 figures, I had a list of questions. And when I mean a list of questions, I had a very long list of questions that I rarely had a chance to get through with one meeting. And what I started looking at was I wanted to evaluate different things to see if there was some common denominators. And I interviewed over somewhere between 40 and 50 people. And most of them I ended up getting on audio. I actually recorded. I asked them if I could record the audio. I even got so excited about this kind of list of questioning and divulging this that I got my top like 6 or 7 leaders together. We went on a retreat and we called it the 6-Figure Ring Retreat. And what we did was we all sat around a boardroom. And what we did was we called these top leaders. And what we did was we asked them questions, and everybody just asked them questions. And we tried to kind of like discover, dissect the 6-figure income as if it was something we were studying in school. And so first thing we did was this, use some of the questions. So we'd write down, we'd say, when did you get started? Did you have any previous experience? These are the questions that I asked. You can write some of these down if you want. You don't have to, they're not. And you can create your own, but I'm going to spitfire them because I remember many of them because they're really important to me. So when did you get started? Do you have any experience? Okay. How much money did you make your first, how many years did it take you to earn 6 figures? What year was that? The other thing was what was the ramp up? Meaning, do you remember what you made your first year, second year, third year, fourth year until you earned 6 figures? So we can kind of see if there was any trends. Other things that we wrote down was, when was the year that you went technically full time, where you would say you were investing 40 hours a week? Okay. What was previous professions? We were writing down anybody's previous professions. Business owners, were you previously a business owner? That was a question because it seemed to kept coming up that somebody that would previously owned a business seemed to be more likely to get to 6 figures faster than somebody that wasn't. So we wrote down things like, married, kids, all that thing, age, demographic. We were writing down all that stuff, obviously. But the other things we were asking as we started diving in deeper into it was this. He said, what percentage of your volume, your sales volume, was coming from one leader down? Okay, meaning one leg, as we were talking about it. Inside of Seacret, we only built 2 legs. So it's a little bit different. We were talking about what percentage of your sales was coming from one team, from one leg. All right. It is down sound like a little bit like Napoleon Hill. Dr. Jenny, you are right. And that's pretty much where we got the idea from. All right. So for those of you guys that know what Napoleon Hill did, Napoleon Hill was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie many years ago to go interview the 500 wealthiest people that he knew and find out if they had things in common. And he found out the 13 things that the 500 wealthiest people on the planet have in common. And guess what he did with those things? People say he wrote a book. No, first what he did was he got rich, and then he wrote a book. Called Think and Grow Rich. What an incredible one, right? So I'm hearing you can't. Let's try this again. Can you hear me better now? Oh yeah, much better. So asking questions. So these are some of the other questions. What percentage of my volume came from one particular team? The other thing we said is, how many personal recruits did you have to get to 6 figures? Meaning, how many people did you personally sponsor in order to get to 6 figures? And then we also tried to find out is, how many did you sponsor in your first year, or if they remembered, or the second year. We also, from the year that they earned 6 figures, go figure this, from the year that they earned 6 figures, which was earning $100,000 within 12 months. Remember, it's not a calendar year. Most companies, whenever you earn $100,000 within any 12-month period, you get rewarded with a 6-figure ring or a 6-figure title. So we asked them, I said, in the year that you earned 6 figures, or in that 12 months, how much money did you make the first month of the 12, and how much money did you make the last month of the 12, right? And that was very fascinating, okay? Almost all of them, I'll see if I can answer some of these questions, started their 6-figure run at somewhere around $3,000, meaning they were earning three, four, 5. And then by the end, they had ramped up to earning somewhere around, because they were making up for those first month, they were earning somewhere around 12 by the last months, right? Or they had a couple of big months to close this out. So it kind of went like this, right? So when they were looking at that run through their process, the other thing we were asking them about is, inside of their organizations, is how many large leaders had left the business and or had quit the business. We were looking at what their retention rate was, How many people were coming on and canceling? I was asking them, what was their morning routine look like? What did they do in their morning? What were they doing to train their organizations? Were they doing weekly conference calls? Were they doing weekly Zooms? Just kidding. There was no Zoom back then. This was 2004. How were they doing social media? They weren't doing that either. There was none of that stuff. But were they doing weekly meetings? How were they differentiating between their leadership? Were they doing trainings? Did they have a website? Were they doing conference calls? I mean, we went into everything. What books were they reading? What were their most important books? What were the favorite books that they read? But then we just kind of just dissected it as best as we could. And then we asked them, I said, is there any other questions that we should be asking that we're not asking? Like those were questions, meaning we even asked, are there questions that we should be asking that we're not thinking to ask you that are really important for us to know to get to six figures? And so we divulged this through this process. And I'll share with you some interesting things that I learned from my first company. Not all of them are exactly relevant because the structure was a little bit different. The time was a little bit different, but there were some things that we had found out for those that went out there and earned six figures. In my first company, we found a lot of similarities. Okay. And there were kind of the outliers, so to speak, the exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, there was a lot of things that we looked at. So for the people that came into the business that had no experience, here's what I had found, that generally those that earned a six-figure income, it took them between 4 to 5 years of consistent work, meaning they didn't have a year off. They didn't have a time off. They weren't contemplating whether or not they were going to be successful. They were working for 4 to 5 years. Generally speaking, they started part-time. And for part-time, that was between 10 to 20 hours a week, a real part-time. Most people in network marketing think they're part-time when they think about their business a lot. Meaning, if they don't do the business, it's not even actually if they just think about their business a lot. They don't do the business very much. So now through that process was they started part-time, they ended up finishing kind of full-time. Okay. What I noticed was the first year was, for the most part, if I looked at the people that earned six figures, the majority of them in their first year would kind of chalk it up as figuring it out. It was a learning experience. And what we really took that from our training standpoint is we told people, I said, look at your first year inside of Seacret, look at your first year in network marketing, almost like a very, an unpaid internship. All right. So that at the end of your first year, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get on-the-job training and on-the-job experience. And what we did was when we lowered the expectations and just focused on development, what I found was less people were so frustrated, but they started looking at our business from a different model. Because what would happen a lot of times, and one of the things is people would see people that have come in with previous experience that have kind of paid their dues somewhere else, and they would hear the numbers of the success stories. Good example, my story. So I came into Seacret in 2011. And I earned $250,000 my first year, and I earned $500,000 my second year. Now, is that a large portion because of Seacret? 100%. I was in a much more new age comp plan that was much more aggressive. You could build a lot faster with payouts that were much larger than my previous company. But my success in my first 2 years in Seacret was because of 9 years of learning this business and understanding it and developing relationships and building it and creating success and creating belief. Like when I came into network marketing, I was like, I hope this works. When I came into Seacret, I wasn't like, I wonder if this works. I'd already built a team of 10,000 people, so I knew I could do it again. And so the question was, how fast can I do it now? So I don't want you to compare your chapter 1 to my chapter 20. And that's what happens a lot of the times is people overestimate what they believe they can accomplish in year 1. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to have goals and we're not going to go crush this and you're not going to make money. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is many of you already have some experience you're coming to the table with, so you already have some of that. But the vast majority of people that were coming into my business, that I built my business with really from an organic standpoint, was nobody had any experience and nobody had ever been successful. So we were talking about year 1 of going, look, take year 1, let's learn the business, okay? And then look at your business like going to school, because we noticed it was a 4 to 5 year business.
It was 4 to 5 years to get it. So we looked at it as kind of like an education process. So, and what it did is it helped people set up the right mindset and the right mind frame in order to get them to the finish line of going, look, this is not a 1-year thing. You don't go to school and be like, well, I'm going to give it a year, and if I don't graduate, I'm out. That's a fail, right? You're setting yourself up for failure if that's the way you're looking at it. So what we looked at was 4 to 5 years. It was another thing. Here was one of the most fascinating things that I found out. Okay. So over 60% of the volume from an organization that was of their sales volume was coming from one leader's team. More than 60. Some of them, it was 80%. So what do I mean by that? Meaning, if you looked at all the people that you personally sponsored, okay, as different lines of sponsorship, said 80% of the sales volume, it was none of them were less than 60%, by the way. None of them were less than 60% to 80% were coming from one leader, which was interesting when we started really diving into it. Was they had one leader that took off and then a little bit of business outside of that leader. That was really what it was across the board with every 6-figure income earner, which we found fascinating at that time. Which, if you guys have heard my story, I talk about finding Sandra, all right, finding my first Sandra, and my first leader. The other things we looked at was they were very a big focus for them, which they said usually happened around when they got around that $2,000 to $3,000 a month. There were 2 things that they were really focused on, and they're shifting their focus. They focused on development and they focused on duplication. So development and duplication became big focuses from them inside their organization. Now, prior to that, there wasn't as many focuses of getting to 6 figures. I mean, getting to development. But like when you build a team of, let's say 100 people and you want to get to 1,000 people, all of a sudden leadership became a lot more important. So leadership became something that they were really studying, not just doing more, but becoming a better leader. Other things that I was looking at inside of their business as they kind of were running towards 6 figures. Most of them said that it took them, it was around when they got serious about, most of them got really serious about their goal. And it took them 2 years to hit the goal from getting serious about it. Meaning they set the goal. That first year, it was like a kind of starting to manifest it, put it out there, talking about it, speaking about it, telling people they were going to get it, telling people they were going to hit it, and going through that. So anyway, I could go on and on about that, but I do want to open it up because I promised I was going to ask some questions. So I think we got some in the chat box. However, I want to hear your guys' voices because I'm sick and tired of doing Zooms and I say things that are funny and this is all I get. You know, right? I don't actually hear any laughter. I'm here in my house by myself and I'm already sad that I'm back home. I want to be out in my van somewhere driving across the country. So anyway, who's got a question for me? Question. Give it to me.
I do.
Jesse, I have a question.
Give it to me. Is that Carla?
How did you use all that information then? So you collected all these data points.
Yeah.
How did you use it to change your direction, or did it take you from not knowing what to do to knowing what to do?
Some of it was that. I mean, I remember it was more so, it was a combination of things. First of all, the more and more that I spoke with people that were earning 6 figures and the more that I started trying to dive into as much as I could to ask them as many questions as I possibly could, the more that it just became tangible. You know, it kind of demystified the success. Because I think sometimes it's easy to see, I remember thinking in the beginning, like having a team of 100 people. Oh my God. Like that would is that possible? You know, like I remember that being like a monumental thing. And for some of you, you may still be in that mind frame. And then once you do that, and then getting from 100 to 200 is like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. And then it starts really kind of compounding. So some of it was demystifying it. The second thing was just seeing if there was common trends. And just when I found things that were kind of common throughout, there were some that were really kind of different. Then that made me go, this is something that I need to either focus on or something I need to train on. So something I need to speak about, something I need to understand more about. One of them was personal enrollments. One of them was personal sponsorships. And what I had found was that the people that got to six figures, and man, and I wish I got to find my old notebooks. I've got some great notebooks. In fact, maybe that's what we'll do. We'll do like we're going to do an old school rendition. I'm going to go through all my old notebooks and find gems in them from my training courses that I went through from my early 20s. But here's what I kind of found is all of them, it was between, if I remember correctly, somewhere between 40 and 60 personal sponsorships, somewhere around there. And which would match up to how we talk about earning six figures inside of Seacret, which is 20/20 vision. 20 agents on your left, 20 agents on your right, 20/20 vision, right? But they all had, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere over 40. Some of them had more, but the other thing is they were all consistently producing. In my previous company, we had a club, kind of a program where you had to do if you did sales and recruits each month, you got points, and those points is what helped you qualify for trips. And so they had this club, and they were pretty much all consistently recruiting about 2 people a month was the average. They were personally recruiting 2 people a month through 3 to 4 years. And those are some of those numbers. But I think the biggest thing for me was just finding going, okay, I'm gonna get enough information, enough data to go, okay, where am I? One of the challenges I think people have inside of network marketing and inside of inside of business period, people coming into network marketing with no experience, their expectations as to what it should be like or what they think it's going to be like are just off. And so therefore their disappointments are a lot of times in things that are actually normally happening. A good example is if I owned a gym and I believed that everybody who bought the gym membership, or if I believed 80% of the people who bought a gym membership were going to show up, that would be a very hard business to build emotionally, because then I would be like, this business isn't working. They're not showing up. When if you own a gym, you just know that. Another good example is if you own a trucking company. If you own a trucking company, you got to understand the attrition, meaning your turnover ratio in a trucking company is a little over 100%, meaning you have people quit faster than a year on average if you own a trucking company. So you're gonna have to replace that. If I own a McDonald's, I got to know what my attrition rate is of how many people I need to be hiring on a monthly basis to replace those that are leaving. Those are things I need to understand. But most people, when they get into network marketing, is timeframes are kind of out the window, because we're talking for the first time, most people are setting huge goals in their lives and they want something. And so it starts opening up from that. So anyway, I don't even know if that answered your question, but gathering information. Here's what's interesting is when you start gathering information and starting to decide to study it like you would something that you decided you were going to be a professional. If you were going to be a chiropractor, you're studying chiropractic, and you're studying those things. And I want you to be obsessed with it as if you need to graduate and pass a class. And if you start doing that, the challenge that happens a lot of times in network marketing is people are studying people that don't have the results that they want. So be careful. Mm-hmm. So they say, be careful who you ask directions from, because most people will try to give you directions even if they have no idea where they're going. So, who else got a couple questions?
Along those same lines, what does your typical day look like from start to finish?
It's a great question. I'm going to answer it as 2 parts. My day today, or my day back when I was going for 6 figures. So today is varied. So a lot of times, here's what I do. I wake up in the morning, I do these huddles because they're awesome and they're fun and I get to see you guys. Today is pretty much, one of 2 things is I am on I'm usually on something for Seacret corporately with either our CEO or our marketing officers on terms of how we're creating better systems and or strategies for the field. So it's usually something that is, most of my conversations are development level conversations when it comes to corporate, meaning how can we create something better that is going to serve the field more. So there's usually something corporately related that I'm doing with our corporate staff on that side. And then the other things that I'm doing is my primary objective is development. So all with my leaders and leaders that are platinums pluses usually inside of the business. And what most of my presentations are recruiting presentations for people where they need to bring in the big gun, so to speak. So meaning is if any of you guys have somebody that's has a lot of experience in network marketing and they want to talk to somebody who's been with Seacret pretty much since the from the get-go, and they want to get a chance to get kind of a higher level perspective, because they're going to ask me a lot of questions that a lot of times somebody that just hasn't been in the business long enough just wouldn't know. So most of it is recruiting talent, recruiting talent and creating better systems to develop the organization. So good example is what's our next video, how to create a better compensation plan video, how are we updating the slides to be more relevant to today. But the other thing that I'm doing right now is I'm doing a lot of studying. So for me, this is I've been in a lot of study mode recently. And part of the reason why is because I grew up building network marketing, not really using social media. Social media for me was a way that we were connected through Teams, and we used it as a communication platform. But I didn't really, I can't say that I built my business off social media. So learning attraction marketing, watching Ruth Trish videos, figuring out all of that stuff, that's where I've been doing. So I've been studying and right along with you guys. But the vast majority of my conversations are development conversations and leadership conversations of taking somebody that is around that $2,000 to $3,000 a month and helping mentor and or coach them to 6 figures. And this happens all over the place. So a good example is I've got these calls on a daily basis. I've got my calls with my Mexico team, which happen 2 to 3 times a week. I've got my Japan calls, which all get translated, which are 2 to 3 times. So I've got my calls with the main group, and then I've got my calls with the individual leaders. So then I've got the ones with Korea. I've got the ones with Australia. So I'm doing these here, but I'm really developing each of the countries. And my goal is replication. How do I reproduce myself? How do I replicate myself as best as I can into the next generation of leaders in my team? So that's most of what it is that I'm doing today when I'm working. So, but I also am excited because I do have the freedom and the flexibility today to not work. Which is awesome too. So the 2 things that I love doing is traveling and experiencing new things, new places, new cultures. That's like my biggest love of my life. And I love development. So those 2 things. So I'm either spending time looking at how do I make things better? How do I create a better system? How do I create more duplication? How do I create a better structure? Or I'm off on some adventure. Those are the 2 things that you get from Jesse pretty much.
Jesse, in terms of receiving coaching, mentoring, development, do you have mastermind groups or people that you work with that are not part of Seacret?
Wait a minute, what? I'm sorry. I don't think I understood the question.
In terms of like you're receiving coaching, development, mentoring, where's that coming from? Are you part of other groups, mastermind groups, or do you have coaches or mentors either within Seacret or without Seacret? Yeah, for what you're getting.
Me getting it. Yes, absolutely. Great question. Yeah. So I was super confused there. So as far as the development side for me is a few different places. So I generally speaking have found that if I'm not in some kind of an event every 6 months, I start deteriorating just personally, just me personally. Some people can go longer, some people it's different things. I really love events, and partially just because I kind of grew up around them. So some of my favorite types of events, although I've been to lots of them, 2 of them that I've consistently felt like that have been just great for me is Tony Robbins events and Landmark Education. So, and I like them both for different reasons. Landmark education is a lot more intellectual. Tony's a lot more your physiology, a lot more of your state. And if you've ever been to any of those live events, I think he's got a UPW that he's doing online right now, actually, which is pretty cool. Those are courses that I absolutely love. So the last event I went to was a Landmark course, which is it was a communication course, which was in January. And my next course, and these are most of the courses I've repeated because I did them all in my early 20s. So I'm going back and doing most of them again now that I've had a little more life experience and hit me in the face. But I have another course in October. I was supposed to be we were supposed to be in the end of March at the Tony Robbins event in San Jose. Then that got postponed and postponed. So personal development courses. So that whether it be personal growth or development, and these compact weekends, I really like. So where it's like 3 days of intensity and then you kind of go implement into your world. So there's that. That's first off. Second thing is, as far as network marketing is concerned, to be honest, it gets pretty sparse when you get above 7 figures. Especially if you go to like a GoPro or an Eric Worre type of event, you kind of get to see and meet all the people that have quote unquote become successful. Part of the reason why I've been to Eric Worre's event, I think every single year. And every year I'm like, I'm not going back. And then I end up going back just because I want to meet some of my friends again. And for the connection and relationships. But part of the biggest issue for me is it's so frustrating. And part of the reason it's so frustrating is because you'll get there and you'll see people making 7 figures a year that have no flipping clue how they got there. They don't have any idea. Like, I mean, it is, and it gives me hope because I'm just like, geez, Louise, but part of the reason why is because if you hit the right company at the right time with momentum and you work really hard and you kind of ride that wave, you can go create success. But I mean, and then what happens is a lot of people believe it's because of them instead of believe because of the momentum. So there's a difference between riding momentum and creating momentum. And a lot of people that rode momentum, so frustrating for me. But I have really two people that are my go-tos in network marketing that have earned over $40-50 million that have been around the profession 30 plus years, that I believe are the ones that really understand the business model, understand the game, that are kind of my go-tos. And then I have 2 groups. I've got one group, which is a 6 and 7 figure only group in network marketing, which has about 400 6 and 7 figure income earners in network marketing in it that I will go to and ask questions periodically. And then I'm always looking to discover some new books. So my go-tos are that. And then there's a few other people in my world that are kind of my go-tos for that. But my favorite is personal coaching. So I've always had, for the most time, is some kind of a personal coach, whether that was through accountability or weekly. And then my favorite is my therapist. My therapist is dope. So honestly, if you don't have a therapist, number 1 recommended thing, get a therapist. And if you're like, I don't know if he's a good one, then he's not. You should be like, my therapist is shit. So like, that's how you should feel about your therapist. If you don't feel that way about your therapist, you go get a new one. So those are some answers.
I know we're kind of getting over time, but I want to piggyback off of Whitney's question and ask what you did in the beginning, not the very, very beginning, but what took you from when you decided this is it to the 3,000, even not even the 6 figures, just that first.
I was waiting for that question and I was excited for it. So we'll, I'll answer this one question. And then what I want you guys to do, guys, part of this was a prep for me. And part of the reason why I was prepping this call is I want you to bring your guys' questions to these calls. And part of the reason why is because, I mean, I can just kind of ramble on about all kinds of stuff all day long, just because after so long, there's so much content that I could just kind of get out to you guys. Mm-hmm. But I want to know what it is that you feel is missing for you, because that's really where the next level of development of this group and these huddles is going to go, is not us just continually repeating the same thing, because there's only so many topics that need to be said inside of Seacret. There's only so many things, right? It's not like there's an unlimited amount of stuff to talk about. It's just kind of repackaging it. I call it being creatively unoriginal. So it's recreating the same things. But the real development of these is going to come from you guys bringing us, hey, here's where I got this, here's where I'm stuck here. And we're taking real life things that you're experiencing in your business and looking at helping you develop through them. All right. So this next week, I'm going to be asking you guys to be bringing us stuff. Right. But in short, I'm going to actually we'll do more on that on Monday in terms of more in depth, but I'll give you the short version of it now, Kelsey, which was this, is separating the difference of understanding the difference between income producing activities and non-income producing activities was by far the most important thing that I had to differentiate. And then I had to focus on and find a way to gamify the fact for me, because I love games and I love winning, but I hate losing. So I just really had to find a way to kind of gamify the process of some of the things that were not my favorite. So it's a good example. Like if you go to the gym, some of you are like, okay, I go to the gym. I love going to the gym, but there's workouts at the gym you don't like, like the ones that you're just like, it's good for you, right? And you need to do it, but you're like, right? I don't want to do that, right? So I had to learn how to quote unquote eat that frog, which was a book by Brian Tracy, which is talking about doing the thing that you hate most. And then that way, as long with something that's productive, in order to make sure that the rest of your day is kind of a win. So because my time frame when I was going from part-time to full-time, I was really learning how to manage my time better between everything I was already doing, was to highly focus on what were the things that were the most likely to create success in my business. And what I really kind of boiled it down to was 3 things, which was new contacts. So I had to be constantly filling my list, filling my pipeline, new contacts. Today, you guys have what I consider an unfair advantage because you have an unlimited supply of resources to be able to pull from through social media today. Back in the day, that was not possible. So there's only 3 ways for us to get contacts. Number one, it was cold market, meaning out and about. So I got really good at meeting people cold market and getting phone numbers. I could probably lift a phone number off of almost any human being cold market walking down the street, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. It was like, I'm a ninja. I'm just telling you right now. It's like people are like, how do you get my number? I don't even know how I got my phone number. It's really fun. And if you want to learn those skills and those techniques, I will teach them to you because they're fun. And I'll pull them out every once in a while. The second thing was you join some kind of groups like BNI groups or chambers or things like that. And those were long developing relationship contacts that you usually had to develop. And the third was you bought leads. So you paid and you bought for people that did advertising through TV or did advertising from online back then through websites of people looking to make money, and you bought leads and you called people. And the vast majority of people were not fun to talk to. So because they were people sitting on their home at couch watching an infomercial at 2 o'clock in the morning, finding out how to get rich without having to do anything but, wanting to stay on their couch. But I had to learn how to add new people to my list every single day. That was one. Second thing I had to learn is I had to learn follow-ups. Follow-ups were something that is for most people, the area at which they struggle the most and they leave the most food on the table. And follow-ups, and we should do a training next week. This is great. The reason why I want you to ask these questions because then I realize these trainings that are really valuable. So follow-up. They say fortune is in the follow-up, 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 follow-up. It was, I was following up till I was blue in the face. And so it was, well, how do I follow up? When do I follow up? How often do I follow up? All these questions started coming out. And so it was basically one of 2 things back in the day. It was like, I would follow up until you would buy or you would die. So, no, I'm just kidding. I wasn't that aggressive. It was following up until I got a hold of the person. It's different today because through messaging, because the only way back in the day I could follow up with people is I physically had to call them and you would leave them voicemails. So today through messaging, it's a little easier to follow up. And, if people ghost you, you you get the picture. But back then it was like you follow up, you might not catch them because you call their home phone. You guys remember home phones? We used to have those, right? I think they're going to make a surge. They're probably going to come back now. And then the third thing was presentations. And this was the key. Step 1 and step 2, meaning new contacts and new and following up, was specifically to get into step number 3, which was presentations. That was it. It was all based around how many presentations can I do? Because at the end of the day, I had to get people into a situation where they were deciding yes or no, right? So I had to get as many people as possible to get to a point where they could decide to join. And they weren't deciding to join on my first contact. They weren't deciding to join on the first follow-up. They were deciding to join after they'd seen what I would consider a full presentation, meaning the company, the products, the compensation, the timing. And I also, in a full overview of the company, was connecting them with somebody else as well, meaning making sure they had someone else to talk to, someone in my upline, they got a third-party story, they've got a testimonial, they got something so it wasn't just me they were seeing. They were seeing the company and they were meeting other people that were successful. So in that is very rarely did somebody make a buying decision to say, yep, I'm doing this with you before they saw that. So in other words, everything in my world was about how many presentations can I be in so I can get as many people to say yes or say no, and to get into that decision. So why am I following? The purpose of following up was to get into a presentation. Why was I doing my first contact? To get to everything. The end of the rainbow was how many presentations can I get into where somebody can be making a decision to say yes or say no. And then everything became about how do I get into that situation as often as possible. So if I had 10 hours a week, everything was about how many times can I get in a presentation. And I looked at my business like being open or closed, meaning if I did a presentation, I was open for business. If I didn't do a presentation, everything else was just advertising. Okay. So, and then reading. I lived in Los Angeles. So when we drove in traffic, I didn't listen to music, and I was a dancer. So this was really weird. So I listened to music. I didn't listen to music for, 2-3 years, which is kind of sad now that, cause I love music, but it was my development time. The only 2 things I ever did in the car was I listened to personal development or I followed up with people. Maybe that's why I was successful. I lived in LA and I was in traffic all day long. So I didn't have any choice.
May I ask you a question?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, yesterday I was in a medical supply store because I had to buy a walker for my dad or get one that the doctor ordered. And I noticed they had a sign up there, masks $8. So I asked the lady who was a manager of the store if she had a good source for those. And she said, well, I have a source. I said, well, how much are you paying? And she told me, and it was like a lot. And so I told her what we had. And so she's interested, and they have like 21 stores and pharmacy. And anyway, between the stores and the pharmacies, they've got like 50 places. Okay. So she was going to talk to somebody. So who could somebody other than me probably needs to talk to them. Would that be you? They're interested.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something that can we sign up a store that can get masks that they're going to sell?
Anybody, don't think of it as a store. Just think of it as an individual that's buying and selling.
Okay.
So
let me ask. Sorry, this guy that's working in my yard has a question. I'm sorry. Let me mute myself. I'll come back. Sorry.
Okay. That's good. Anyway, and for those of you guys that are just questions about businesses, don't think of a business as anything more than just an individual that has a way to be able to move product. That's the way I always look at it, is an individual that has a way to move product. So if we can connect the dots, they're great. But what they're doing is an individual signing up is the same as a business signing up. Same thing. So they can sign up as a business. So I can sign up as, hair salon or business owner. And as the same example, they can buy the products at agent pricing and sell them in their store. So it's no different. So yeah, we can definitely, if you want, Trish, Ruth, me, anybody, okay.
I'm just wondering if they're going to need more information than I'm very new, so I don't know enough, I know how to tell them to sign up, but is there a limit on how many boxes they can buy to have in their different stores? If they've got 20 some medical supply stores and then, or maybe it was 15, I don't know. They have 10 medical supply places and 20 pharmacies or something.
Genevieve, you and I touch bases later this afternoon, and I'll help you get some of those answers because I think I can help you with that.
And it's a question. I don't even know the answer to that question if there's limited supply, but that's a customer care question. We'll find out. But then we'll set up a call and make it happen. So, all right. That's it for today, guys. We're overtime. Actually, I got my next Zoom that is already waiting for me, patiently waiting. So anyway, this was his pre-training before the training. So anyway, I love you guys. We'll see you guys on Monday, and bring your questions. I will bring you answers. I can't promise you they'll be good, but we'll see what I say. And we'll see you guys then. Bye.